Good morning, everybody. My name is Sathya, and I'm back again with Daily Current Affairs with Sathya Sir. Satyanarayan from IQ Ideas, that is me, have this daily online session where I talk about current affairs, important news from a daily newspaper, important for students who are preparing for various entrance exams. I also talk about interesting articles which can be read with the purpose of improving your reading comprehension and language skills and mark out important words of vocabulary that will help you improve your verbal ability. So, without further ado, let's jump into the news for today, which is the 5th of July 2025. The main headlines is a statement by the Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal. He says national interest, not deadline, to dictate US trade deal. So, the important thing is Commerce and Industry Minister is Piyush Goyal, and his statement, and I paraphrase here, is national interest, not deadline, to dictate US trade deal. Now, it is important to understand what is meant by this. So, as you would know, US President Donald Trump had imposed reciprocal tariffs on nearly 100 countries some time back, but agreed to a 90 deal pause, and that 90 days deal pause is going to end on the coming Tuesday. So obviously, a lot of these tariffs will need to be worked out. And Donald Trump has imposed a 26% reciprocal tariff, I think, on India. But as there are only a couple of days left, the question was whether India would hastily agree to some mini deal till a better deal can be worked out in the future. So now Piyush Goyal, the Union Minister for Commerce and Industry, has obviously come out with this very clear statement in Indian interest, saying India will enter into a trade agreement with the US only if its interests, that is India's interests, are protected and it is able to sustain a tariff advantage over the competitors while prioritizing the interest of farmers. And further on, he says India has never discussed any trade agreement or even a tranche of trade agreement under any time pressure or under any duress. We have to take care of our national interest. We have to ensure that it's a fair deal which gives us a sustained preferential advantage over our competitors. And if we get a good deal and we are able to strike the right balance, everything is possible. But we are not working towards any specific deadlines, we are working towards national interest. So, this is obviously a very great statement made by the Union Minister, because a lot of international trades happen which are obviously subject to tariffs. But prioritizing commerce, prioritizing trade over interests of farmers and other local entities is not something good for the nation as a whole. So, this is a very interesting statement made, and we should definitely be following on what happens to various trade agreements between US and India in particular. The next top headline is Army Deputy Chief says Sindoor faced three foes: Pakistan, China, and Turkey. So, this is by Lieutenant General Rahul R. Singh, who said that China would rather use the neighbor to cause pain than get involved in the mudslinging match on the northern borders. China was able to test its weapons against India, so it's like a live lab available to them. Okay. Further on, he says in the next round we will have to be prepared for that. That is a risk to the population centers. So for that, more air defense, more counter rockets, artillery, and drones have to be prepared. For which we have to move very, very fast. Okay. So an interesting comment made was that Operation Sindoor had three foes. The outright foe was obviously Pakistan, but the other two which he has claimed are China and Turkey. Turkey is nothing but what we called Turkey. Okay. Below that, we have small headlines. A lot of them are related to inconsequential newses, but a couple of important headlines. One is the CUET, the Central or Common Universities Entrance Test for undergraduates. These results are out. Second, the High Court has said no disputed structure tag for the Mathura mosque. Okay, so the headline, High Court says no disputed structure tag for the Mathura mosque. So if I were to get into this news a little bit, it says the Allahabad High Court dismissed on Friday an application moved by the Hindu side asking the court to direct that the phrase disputed structure be used in place of Shahi Eidgah Mosque in the Krishna Janmabhoomi Shahi Eidgah title dispute case. Earlier, during court proceedings, an application was moved in the original suit number 13 of 2023 with a prayer to direct the stenographer concerned to use the word disputed structure in place of Shahi Eidgah Mosque in all further proceedings. Okay, that should be an interesting news, and there are details on a further page, so we will read it when we come to that. We move ahead to the city page. A lot of news regarding crimes in the city which are irrelevant, something related to the realty boom in the city, again not important. The next city page, couple of news regarding crimes, inaugurations of new universities, rise in prices. The big article is hospitals see an increased bacterial resistance to strong antibiotics. The report says over 40% of E. coli and Klebsiella are resistant to high-end antibiotics. So, although not current affairs news, this is an interesting article which students can definitely read and see if they can gain some general knowledge. The next city page is again majorly on crime, so irrelevant. The state news page also has mostly crime related news, so I'm going to skip that. The first nation page has hardly anything. Both are continuation of the two headlines that we saw on the front page. One is the continuation of the US trade tariffs issue, where this headline reads only few countries have agreed to US trade deals. Okay, and next is again related to the Sindoor operation, where the news headline of the continuing news is China using SATs or satellites to monitor Indian military movements. Okay, the next nation page has just 3 articles, all related to issues of law. The biggest headline is the High Court says under BNSS, that is the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, there is no bar on pre-arrest bail in cases punishable with death or life term. Okay, now this is an interesting article which probably law aspirants can read, and for CLAT aspirants, passage based questions of legal aptitude, we can definitely see if we could come up with some interesting questions. So the uh, headline is the High Court says under BNSS, no bar on pre arrest bail in cases punishable with death or life term. Okay. So one thing which you definitely should be knowing in this is what does the BNSS stand for? So the BNSS is the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita. So in July 2023, we had 3 old laws replaced, and this was the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita, which replaced the CRPC, the Criminal Procedures Code. Okay, so reading this article, it says that the Allahabad High Court has held that with the enforcement of BNSS from July 1st, 24, the restrictions on granting anticipatory bail in cases punishable with death or life imprisonment under section so and so of CRPC no longer applies. Okay, so law aspirants should definitely be reading this particular news article, this particular thing with interest. The next nation page The biggest headline is Fadnavis won't tolerate hooliganism. Proud of Marathi, but no injustice can be done to other languages, says the Maharashtra CM. Okay. We know that a lot of local language support and violence thereof has been happening in a couple of states. Karnataka and Maharashtra have been a lot in the news for taking almost a militant stand on the use of their respective local languages. So here the Maharashtra CM Devendra Fadnavis says that hooliganism will not be tolerated, which is definitely necessary. I mean, the intolerance is necessary. The next nation page is government doesn't take stand on matters of belief, says the Ministry of External Affairs. So this is related to the issue of the selection of the successor of the current Dalai Lama, who is 90 years of age. The byline reads, Dalai succession issue, India has always upheld freedom of religion. Okay, so following remarks by the Union Minister Kiren Rijiju backing the Dalai Lama's announcement about his succession plan, including the statement that China will have no role in it, India on Friday said it has taken no position on what was an issue concerning faith and religion. Interestingly, the Chinese Foreign Ministry, after cautioning India at a media brief, according to agency reports from Beijing, against interfering in Tibetan affairs at the expense of Sino-India ties, omitted its comments objecting to Rijiju's remarks from the official transcript of the briefing. Interesting. So this article, entire article, can be read to get updates on what is definitely going to be something of concern in the coming days. The next nation page is, it seems to be an interview with Piyush Goyal. So we have already seen on the front page the statement by the Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal that national interest, not deadline, is going to dictate the US-India trade deals. So this is an entire article, this is an entire interview conducted by the newspaper with the Minister Piyush Goyal, where he says he expects exports to scale a new high this year, aided by FTAs. While remaining upbeat in growth, he tells that investment is flowing into several sectors and he's pushing for a review of FTAs with ASEAN and Japan and cautious on China. So those interested in business, economics, international trade should definitely go through this complete article. The next nation page, some row regarding distribution of free sanitary pad packs by Congress with Rahul's picture on it ahead of Bihar poll elections. Okay, one interesting, albeit small article is something which can definitely be a single liner, and it says after the IAF, Navy gets its first woman fighter pilot. So this is a one-liner news. Navy, Indian Navy gets its first female fighter pilot, and that is Sub-Lieutenant Astha Punia. Sub-Lieutenant Astha Punia. Okay, so after the Indian Air Force, which has over 20 women fighter pilots now, the Navy also has a woman officer, all set to begin 1 year of final training to qualify as a full-fledged MiG-29K pilot capable of tearing into the sky from an aircraft carrier. Okay, so Sub-Lieutenant Astha Punia and Lieutenant Atul Kumar Dhul received their prestigious Wings of Gold after completing transitional fighter training on Hawk Advanced Jet Trainers. Great. So this one-liner, who was the first, or who is expected to be the first woman fighter pilot of the Indian Navy? That is Sub-Lieutenant Astha Punia. Excellent. Let's move on to the middle page, my favorite, which is more important for commentary on opinions on various issues and language. The top column is by Parth Sinha, who is a senior advisory professional, and it reads Gender's Gourmet Trap. Cultures that fetishize food stick women in the kitchen for hours on hours. Gender parity takes off when cuisine is functional. UK to Germany, overcooked cabbage to sausage. Okay. So this is regarding gender politics in the culinary world. It's going to be an interesting article. Those interested in hotel management can just read this as as a piece of interest. Those interested in business management can definitely read this so that they will get talking points if they are ever faced with a question regarding gender politics in any particular sector. Below that, we have the piece by an environmentalist, Chandra Bhushan. Virtue signaling doesn't control pollution. So this is regarding Delhi's strong stand that old vehicles beyond a certain age will no longer be given fuel at petrol stations. It reads, public outrage has muted Delhi's drive to push out old cars. Bigger problem is that clean air policies are fashioned without scientific insight or robust data, and some actually hurt the environment. So this is definitely going to be an interesting article to read. I can definitely think of a few reading comprehension questions which can be created from here. The left three pieces, top is role model. EC's revision is more confusing than comforting. So ahead of the Bihar elections, yesterday also we saw there were issues related updating the electoral rolls, the voter rolls. So this is an article, an opinion piece on that. Below that, model community, Tibetans in India need a better state support. So an article related to succession of the Dalai Lama. And finally, poetry and politics in love and war. This seems to be Fez's work endures because its core is humanism. So on literature. So literature interested candidates should definitely be reading that article at the bottom. The next page, couple of interesting pieces. One is sheer neglect. India has the second largest sheep population in the world, but 50% of indigenous wool is discarded. Dakkani sheep, once reared in Tamil Nadu and part of the social fabric of farming communities, has almost vanished. Okay, so as an interesting reading practice piece, this article can be read. And next, light pollution leaves fireflies in the dark in India. Again, environment, biology related article. On the global page, Russia pounds Kyiv with the largest drone attack hours after Trump-Putin call. So updates on the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. White House to start notifying countries about tariffs, says Trump. Again, updates on the trade tariff issues. Then below that, individual articles, some related to the Israeli strike in Gaza, and so on and so forth. The business page just has information which economics interested people or finance or business interested people would go through, but nothing really catches the eye here. Next, moving on to the sports page, updates on the ongoing Test cricket series between India and England. Okay. The next sports page again seems to have articles related to the cricket match. Cricket being the largest passion in India, it's obvious that you would have a lot of updates or even just interest pieces on it. The last page is a nation page with nothing great. So that brings us to the end of today's session, where the main takeaways, the biggest takeaways are obviously the comments by Piyush Goyal, his big interview with the newspaper regarding the trade tariff disputes with US is having with a lot of countries, and what India's position is going to be. And for the next few days, we'll definitely be watching with interest, especially come this Tuesday, to see once the 90 days